Hi everyone, welcome back to Splash Page. I'm Sean and today we're going to be wrapping up our series on who were the Guardians of the Globe by covering the final Guardian that we have yet to speak about. That, of course, is Darkwing. And before we jump in, I know some people might be saying, well, you haven't covered the Immortal. And I think we know based on what we've seen so far in just Season 1 of Invincible that his ability to not die, no matter how many limbs you rip apart or shred him in half, makes him a larger character than what we consider the rest of the Guardians of the Globe. So today we're going to focus on Darkwing, and maybe we'll save the Immortal for a future video. So Darkwing. What is there to know about Darkwing? Well, the first is probably the most obvious. He's basically a complete ripoff of Spider-Man. I'm just messing with you. It's obviously the Caped Crusader, Batman. A man at his physical peak, but not superpowered, reliant on his intelligence and tech to make him formidable. He mostly prowls the streets of Midnight City, similarly to how Batman is mostly known for fighting in Gotham City. In just the handful of scenes we get with Darkwing, we see a bunch of his cool gadgets. He has sticky bombs, which he uses against the Maulers. He has contact bombs, which he uses to blow up the falling rubble before it hits Omni Man. He has these cool ninja-esque stars, although in the fight against the Mauler twins we don't see what they do. We do see him use something similar against Omni-Man, so maybe this is the same thing. He has a grappling hook, which is very Batman, and he uses it in similar ways. These really cool magnetic discs that can pull grown men off their feet and across impressive distances. He has hydraulic metal pipes that are strong enough to hold up a tank that would easily have crushed him and the innocent bystander if they weren't to deploy at the right moment and have the right strength. His hoverboard, which is just super badass, like a cool Marty McFly. And finally, he flies the Wingman, which I love. They stole part of his name and put it with the vehicle that he's driving, similar to how Batman has the Batmobile and a lot of other Bat-named vehicles. The criminals in Midnight City fear Darkwing like the villains in Gotham City do Batman. In the scene where he apprehends the two thieves on the roof, one of them says to the other, he can't be everywhere. And I love this because it's such a Batman reference. Batman makes the criminals fear the dark rather than live in the dark. And I love the fact that they did the same here with Darkwing. He was also suspected to be the person that called the Guardians to their headquarters, meaning he might be seen as one of the leaders of the group or even potentially the person who built the headquarters, considering it does have a landing area for the Wingjet. We all know there's a lot of similarities between Darkwing and Batman, but one of the funny differences here is Batman obviously never wants to kill, and honestly I think that is the same here with Darkwing. However, in this scene with the criminals that he magnetizes to the water towers on top of a building, if you've seen our video on the top 10 gruesome deaths in Invincible Season 1, you'll know that in all likelihood these guys have actually been killed based on just hanging there. It was actually a form of crucifixion, meaning that if they weren't taken down within a half an hour to an hour, they were actually dead. I say this as a little joke because obviously I don't think that was the intent, but it would have been the end result in real life. During the fight with Omni Man, we know that the comics give us less than a fourth of a page to see Darkwing die. The show gives him a moment to be heroic, but it's actually kind of idiotic. No matter how hard Darkwing could have kicked Omni Man in this situation, it wouldn't have been half as strong as War Woman's mace or Aquarius' awesome blast of seawater. And when he gets grabbed and splatted like a water balloon, most people's reaction was, why did he do that? And honestly, I agree. I have no idea why he did this, but it cost both him and Green Ghost their lives. So it wasn't the strongest or smartest move on his part. But here's where things get interesting and a little bit spoilery. I promise I won't dive too far into the comic or potentially into the show, but I think there are some things worth mentioning about the Darkwing character that we know. Before everyone knows that Omni-Man is the person who killed the Guardians of the Globe, he gives a speech at the funeral. He says a few things about Martian Man and War Woman, and then says this about Darkwing. Well, Darkwing made his own kind of solitude. What an odd thing to say at this point in the show. But knowing the comic, I think I can put together what he means. Like Batman, Darkwing has a sidekick. His sidekick is named Nightboy. Probably not the most creative name. And he has a role to play later in the story, and I'm not going to go fully into that here and potentially spoil that plot point, but I do want to say that once he takes the name Darkwing 2, we learn that Darkwing 2 actually has some powers, unlike his mentor, and this power is a pretty wild one. He has the ability to go to the Shadowverse, a separate reality where only he has the ability to return from. There are also violent creatures that live there that he certainly has no control over. Think of it kind of like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. He can do this by diving into shadows, which, if you remember, I mentioned earlier that the bad guys feared the shadows when Darkwing was patrolling Midnight City. It also might be what Omni-Man was referencing at the funeral. Well, Darkwing made his own kind of solitude, going to the Shadowverse and not being around other humans. Well, that's everything I could find out about Darkwing. Let me know if I missed anything. Also, are you excited to see Darkwing 2 in Season 2 or Season 3 of Invincible? Who was your favorite Guardian? If you want to check out our other videos on the screen now, we should be able to see the video who was War Woman and who was Martian Man, so check those out when you get a chance. That's it for me. Thanks everyone. Take it easy, YouTube.